My name is Wendy Brooks and I'm the CEO at Young Regional School of Music in New South Wales. My presentation is titled New South Wales Regional Conservatoriums, Nourishing Music Education in Regional, Rural and Remote New South Wales. The Association of New South Wales Regional Conservatoriums is the peak body for 17 community-owned and operated conservatoriums which are scattered across the state. Each conservatorium operates autonomously and is usually the principal provider of music education and performance in its respective region. The conservatoriums deliver individual and group lessons and ensemble tuition on their own campuses and also in school settings. The conservatoriums work within an agreement with the New South Wales Department of Education, whereby they receive partial funding and increasingly work as third-party providers of school-based music education. Regional conservatoriums deliver music education to regional communities from early childhood through to seniors, and also facilitate the Regional Youth Orchestra, which is an audition-based youth orchestra for talented students from regional communities. The Regional Youth Orchestra has opportunity to perform with world-class orchestras and conductors. Clopper highlighted the fundamental aim of regional conservatoriums as attempting to provide equity for students in remote areas, having the same access to music education opportunities as do their city counterparts. The recently released Rural and Regional Education Strategy 2021 to 2024 by the New South Wales Department of Education identifies 4 key areas for improved outcomes in rural, regional and remote education, they being people, practice, partnerships and participation. This study proposes that in New South Wales, regional conservatoriums are in a unique position to contribute to each of these areas, thereby aiding in addressing issues of equity and access for regional, rural and remote students. In order to do this, it's necessary to contextualise the work of the conservatoriums and to consider their programs alongside the rural and remote strategy. This process is framed by the notion of place-based thinking, which promotes the identification and mobilisation of endogenous potential, emphasises opportunity rather than disadvantage, and aims for equality, growth and the reduction of locational polarisation, which is consistent with the aims of the study. Data collected from 16 of the 17 conservatoriums represents their operations in 347 schools across the state. The tables and charts on this slide indicate that 3/4 of the schools are primary schools, and this is significant as New South Wales primary schools rarely have access to specialist music teachers. The figure of 27% for schools with less than 100 students is significant because these schools are considered to be further disadvantaged through their limited access to both human and physical resources. The locations within which regional conservatoriums work have been analysed as to disadvantage using both the Mapping Economic Disadvantage in New South Wales report and the Dropping Off the Edge 2015 Persistent Communal Disadvantage in Australia report. These reports indicated that of the 17 conservatoriums, 8 fall into disadvantaged and 9 fall into most disadvantaged classifications. Other significant locational data shows that the inner and outer regional schools account for 90% of those involved with regional conservatoriums. The average distance from schools to its servicing regional conservatorium is 39 kilometres, with several schools more than 100 kilometres away. The total distance of the schools from the regional conservatoriums is 15,415 kilometres. This is the potential distance that's travelled each week of the school term by the regional conservatorium's 500 plus teachers. Further investigation of the socio-educational context within regional conservatoriums' work is assisted by analysis of the Index of Community, Social and Educational Advantage scores for the schools within which the programs are delivered. Created by ACARA as a means to enable meaningful comparison between schools, the index offers a numerical representation of the level of disadvantage of a school. The index utilises data related to the students, including their parents' occupation and education level, as well as school factors, including their location and their Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander population. The index has a median of 1,000 and a standard deviation of 100. The index is set at an average of 100, so with lower scores, more disadvantage is indicated. Higher scores indicate educational advantage. The average ICSEA score of the schools serviced by regional conservatoriums is 975, which is lower than average and falls within the 38th percentile. It's very significant that the regional conservatoriums service 46 schools which fall in the lowest 10 percentile. It's also significant that the range spans from 1 to 99, and this necessitates careful and ethical management of the programs and the funding to ensure equitable access to music education. The aggregate distribution reflects the ICSEA scores of all the schools worked in by the regional conservatoriums. It reflects significant disadvantage, particularly when it's compared with the national distribution. Having provided this context, it's clear that regional conservatoriums are working in areas of the state where students are educationally disadvantaged and are those targeted by the Rural and Remote Education Strategy 2021 to 2024. The next part of the presentation aligns the regional conservatorium work with the focus areas of this report. A reminder that the report has 4 key focus areas of people, practice, partnerships, and participation. The first focus area of people aims to supply students in rural and remote communities with more high-quality educators who are aware of localised needs. As noted earlier in the presentation, 347 schools across New South Wales use regional conservatorium staff to provide music education opportunities for their students. These might be individual or group tuition, or they might be an ensemble which is led by a regional conservatorium teacher. Increasingly, schools in regional, rural and remote areas are utilising partnerships with regional conservatoriums for support in delivering their classroom music to meet curricular requirements, particularly when the school is small with limited staff resources, as was noted by Graham Sattler in his 2016 doctoral thesis. Several regional conservatoriums employ qualified music teachers to provide regular classroom lessons in regional, rural and remote schools, and often these teachers travel between several schools in a week. However, it's important to note that most conservatoriums lack the financial capacity to offer a competitive salary for these qualified teachers, and therefore it's often difficult to employ enough teachers to meet the demands. A description of such classroom teaching was offered in a paper that I submitted for MISTEC in 2020, and interview data in this paper attests the importance of providing high-quality music teachers to ensure that students living in regional, rural and remote areas can access music education, and also proposes that regular music classes facilitate engagement. One-off music activities like concerts are always great, but the real learning happens in the classroom every week when I can build on what they know and teach them in ways that I know work in those places, and I can make it relevant for them. If I didn't do it, there would be no music at all in these schools. This is a quote from an interview with a teacher employed in a regional conservatorium. The instrumental and vocal tuition offered by regional conservatoriums is perhaps the most important thing that they do. The conservatoriums have recently introduced minimum standards for instrumental and vocal tutors employed within their conservatoriums to ensure that students in regional, rural and remote locations and schools have access to high quality tuition. Although conservatoriums experience enormous difficulties in attracting and employing well-qualified teachers, over 500 teachers are employed to deliver music education within the schools as well as on the campuses. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, regional conservatoriums have delivered their tuition via digital video means, ensuring that regional, rural and remote students are not further disadvantaged through distance. The Conservatorium's Regional Youth Orchestra was established in 2016 by the Association of New South Wales Regional Conservatoriums. Talented students from the regional conservatoriums across the state are invited to audition for the orchestra, and successful applicants play and perform with other young regional musicians and with musicians from world-class orchestras. The young musicians come together for 2 or 3 projects each year, where they learn from regional conservatorium staff, from leading conductors and musicians, as well as from tertiary students from the Sydney Conservatorium of Music, who mentor the regional students via the Richard Pulley program. The role of the program is consistent with the function of youth orchestras as posited by Tomaney in 2007, which was to assist individual pre-professional young musicians to enter their desired career path and, in the interests of social justice, to provide access to music educational opportunities for young people in areas of relative geographical remoteness and cultural isolation. The second area, practice, aims to better equip and develop rural and remote teachers to deliver a broader curriculum contextualised to the needs of the community to offer engaging learning opportunities for students. Recent media reports indicate a crisis in teacher supply, with rural, regional and remote areas most affected. Providing professional experience in rural, regional and remote locations for pre-service teachers is considered to be critical in building confidence to work in regional settings, as well as increasing positive attitudes towards appointments in these locations. Several authors advocate a focus on place-based teacher education so that pre-service teachers can experience the place held by teachers in rural communities and their potential impact on rural sustainability, as noted by Dubell and Sobel and by White. Successful rural practicum placements require positive collaboration between teacher educators, rural education leaders and teaching staff to ensure that pre-service teachers are well prepared for working in rural schools. Regional conservatoriums assist in facilitating rural practicums through a 3-way partnership with Sydney Conservatorium of Music and a local school. The practicums are enabled by the Richard Pulley Outreach and Regional Engagement Program, which seeks to redress the imbalance in music resources in rural and remote areas of New South Wales. Implemented as a means of bridging the gap between city and regional conservatoriums, the program has Sydney Conservatorium tertiary students working on short projects or performing in rural, regional and remote schools, and the program has extended to support music education students who wish to undertake non-metropolitan practicum placements. Regional conservatoriums also assist in upskilling generalist primary school teachers in music education through the provision and/or facilitation of professional learning opportunities. Of note, regional conservatorium staff present well-attended courses across the state through the New South Wales Teachers Federation Centre for Professional Learning and provide longer-term access to this through the CPL journal and podcasts. The National Music Teacher Mentoring Program was designed and implemented by Richard Gill. Its aim is to reignite the capacity and passion for music for primary school teachers to deliver music programs, as noted by Devery. Grounded in vocal-based training with a strong focus on music literacy and creativity, the program pairs experienced music educators with generalist classroom teachers to improve their skills and confidence in teaching music and thereby improve their musicality and well-being and enhance their engagement. 3 regional conservatoriums facilitate this program, which progresses through lessons modelled by the mentor, to lessons taught by a mentor and mentee together, and finally to lessons taught by the mentee and observed by the mentor. The third focus area is participation, and the aim of the participation focus area is to ensure that staff and students in rural and remote schools are more empowered to address wellbeing needs through strong connections with their communities. Perceived health and wellbeing benefits through participation in music making have received increased attention in the last 20 years. Regional conservatoriums offer community and school-based programs that are designed to contribute to the improvement of the wellbeing of their participants. These programs may be run as music therapy or as community music experiences. Consistent with the aims of the Rural and Remote Education Strategy, Pavlicevic describes group music therapy as participatory, inclusive musical action enacted and crafted collaboratively by all who attend. Socially engaged and participative events that impact on people's lives, connect people with one another, and create possibilities for social participation. An example of such a program, with which you may be familiar, is Drumbeat. This is an evidence-based social and emotional drumming program within which many regional conservatorium teachers have received training. Sattler's 2016 doctoral dissertation noted the potential of community music activity to contribute to socio-cultural enrichment. He investigated and described these benefits derived from participation in community music activity. The Association of New South Wales Regional Conservatoriums has also engaged with international experts on community music and inclusion, notably Dr. Phil Mullen, to help to develop regional conservatorium teachers' skills in this area of growing importance. The final focus area of the strategy is partnerships, which aim to leverage more productive partnerships with higher education providers, vocational education providers, and local industry to increase rural and remote student achievement, ambition, and access to post-school opportunities. Findings from several studies indicate that partnerships between rural, regional, and remote schools and external bodies can impact positively on student social capital, particularly when building on a sense of place. They can also provide a strong basis for improving rural student outcomes and contribute to community strengthening, according to the Department of Education and Early Childhood Development paper. The Melbourne Declaration on Educational Goals for Young Australians contains an expectation that social partnerships will be forged among schools and with groups external to the school, while the National Review of School Music advocates support for teachers' work through partnerships with music organisations and industry. Regional conservatoriums have formal partnerships with Sydney Conservatorium of Music, the University of New England, and Central Queensland University, all of which facilitate opportunities for rural and remote students to participate in higher education experiences. The Richard Pulley Outreach and Regional Engagement Program, referred to as the Buddy Program, involves Sydney Conservatorium of Music students participating in residencies which involve tutoring and workshops for festivals and concerts, individual teaching and performance training, demonstrations and concerts in schools, and practicum placements, all hosted by regional conservatoriums. Historically, the first regional conservatorium, Mitchell Conservatorium, began operations as a division of Sydney Conservatorium of Music, and close relations have been maintained. 4 regional conservatoriums partner with Central Queensland University in delivery of the Diploma of Music and Bachelor of Music study programs. Students may undertake individual instrumental or vocal tuition with qualified regional conservatorium staff in classical, jazz or popular music without the need to travel or relocate to metropolitan areas. Similarly, another 4 conservatoriums partner with the University of New England in delivering performance aspects of the regional, rural and remote students' tertiary studies in music. These programs not only assist in providing access to post-school opportunities, but also restrict the costs associated with relocation, and graduates can join the educational workforce in their own regional, rural or remote locations. In conclusion, regional conservatoriums are in a unique position to broaden access and increase equity for rural, regional and remote school students through a variety of programs and activities, and in so doing, they can aid in addressing the disadvantage for those students who are marginalised by distance from urban centres.